evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. So it's my pleasure to have Professor Raghunath Singh Rao here. We've been trying to coordinate his visit since a year now, when I knew about his visit to IIMA Bangalore. So it's great knowing him. So Professor Raghunath Singh Rao is Associate Professor and also Carl Centennial Fellow in Business at UT Austin. He also happens to be NIT Surat, IFT and UT Minnesota Allen. So his interest areas are quite eclectic, and I think many of the papers that I read either cite him or I myself cite a lot of his papers because of the intersection that his work between behavioral economics and marketing. So he uses issues pertaining to bounded rationality, information asymmetry, and the sectors that his work spans include durable goods, entrepreneurship, sales management and incentives. I think today's talk is going to cover a bit on incentives. So interestingly, his exposure to topics such as entrepreneurship and sales management has also won him some best paper awards in 2018 ABI Entrepreneurial Marketing and 2014 Sales Special Interest Group Excellence in Research. Interestingly, he also has been working on the warm glow effect and applications of behavioral economics in charitable organizations context. It would have been nice to see all his research snapshot put up in the slide. He also is the associate editor of IGRM, and we all know that he is quite extensively published in marketing science, QME, including management science, and JMR and JM. So today's talk is based on a field experiment on Salesforce compensation. So I think with this, I will give the stage to him. Welcome to my event.
So it's always good to go and present at an institute where you try to get in and you never got admitted, right? So it's good to be here and talk about some of the research. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with a sort of a managerial puzzle, and then hopefully some part of that puzzle could be solved through what I'm going to do in the presentation that is going to come forward. I actually do quite a bit of work nowadays in India. So this actually field experiment comes from a company I work in Ahmedabad, and it's an association that actually has worked quite well for me. So I have a paper that was published in GMR in 2013 that also involved working with an Indian company and using the data to think about sales incentive association. So just for PhD students and junior faculty, that's one big advantage of being in India. It's a laboratory of ideas, and companies are a lot more willing to actually share the data and work with you. At least that's my experience. When I talk to American companies, after you start discussing stuff with them, there comes a stage when lawyers come. And when lawyers come in, nothing is possible, because the lawyer would say, this line of the spreadsheet cannot be given because I have a potential lawsuit. Because if somebody sees that, says something might be, something might be relevant to a party that is suing us, or so on and so forth. So it's almost impossible to get any sort of disaggregated data from a large American company. So I think it's a good idea to actually talk to companies in India, because these privacy concerns, these legal concerns, at least in my experience, are much smaller in India than this is. So just my half-minute spiel about working with India and so on, with Indian companies. Okay. So the managerial puzzle that I'm going to talk about is the following. Okay, so think about a sales territory. Okay, you have a sales territory where every month you observe sales happen. Okay, let's say 20 lakhs worth of sales, and the sales territory has multiple salespeople. Okay, and the way the sales territory is designed or set up, it's very difficult for you to say that this salesperson is going to work with this client, this salesperson is going to work with this other client, and so on and so forth. So the boundaries for what salespeople can do, the clients that they can handle, are very fuzzy. And that's a very common situation in many sales contexts, right? If I have an opportunity, I will go and talk to a B2B client, and I'll get the money, and the company really cannot say that you are getting a business. Why did this salesperson went and talk to this guy while the other people could not? So the point I'm trying to make it is that every month you get this output, and this output is a summary measure of what happened in this sales territory, right? And you don't know this summary measure, how much of it came from one person versus other person's effort. So this sort of fuzziness surrounding the effort that contributed to this output that you observe. Okay, so the question is then, how do you reward these people, right? Typically, how do we reward people is like, if you sell 20 lakhs, I'm going to give you 10%. If you sell 10 lakhs, I'm going to give you 10% of that, and so on and so forth. Now it's a territory where multiple people are working, and at the end of the day, we have an aggregated outcome. I can't pinpoint, right, that who brought how much sales. How do I reward this, right? So that's sort of very managerial, very practical issue that we're going to talk about in this paper. Okay. So any questions, comments on the problem?
Yeah. So in one sector or two sectors, some of the sectors, there are very well defined places or territories that you can visit.
Sure.
Right? Generally, the manager keeps an eye on who is visiting him, because there were daily reports and so on and so forth.
Correct.
So I don't know as to what particular context is this, but then in my
Correct. So good point. In fact, what you're talking about is you are actually giving me a preview of what I'm going to talk about, right? So the idea is that the aggregate output measure is not a good measure of individual effort, but there could be other things that you could do which could bring signals about individual efforts, right? And that's what we are going to talk about here, right? These individual signals sort of need to be incorporated into the salesperson's incentive plan, and that's the direction I'm going to go. I mean, the motivation for the problem is very straightforward, right? It's a big sector of the economy. In US, Salesforce related incentives now constitute about $1 trillion. We're talking about a really fairly significant part of economic activity, right? And of course, there's a lot of interest, because if you are paying $1 trillion, managers want to know better ways to reward salespeople. And it's also of great interest to academicians, not just in marketing, but in many other areas, because it speaks to issues about firm organization and so on and so forth, right? So this is like how it's like a snapshot of how firms work and how firms are organized and so on and so forth, right? So a lot of interest, right? So what used to happen in this particular topic in 70s and 80s and early 90s, we had all these papers which were primarily survey based. Right? What we would do is you would go and talk to a bunch of salespeople, right? And the salespeople would talk about things like motivation, teamwork, trust, and all these issues, and would give their opinion about how they feel about how these things are going on in their sales organization and so on and so forth. And then you will look at things like overall satisfaction of the sales team, or overall, some measure of the productivity of the sales team, and you will try and create correlations, right? That primarily was how this field was going on. But what has really happened and what is really exciting in last 10 years or so is the availability of extremely micro level of data, where you can actually track individual salespeople in terms of what they do, how they do it, what is the output at individual level, and so on and so forth. So this is really exciting, because we can do a lot more with this kind of data, which is sort of very unbiased kind of data. It doesn't suffer from desirability bias and so on and so forth. And then there are also very nice measures of the productivity that are going on, right? So this is sort of an exciting time. It also is sort of exciting to MBAs and so on and so forth, because it falls into this sexy area called people analytics and so on and so forth, right? And again, people want to know about these things, right? So in that sense, this sales literature which had somehow dampened in 90s, now suddenly had made a resurgence, right? A lot of people are working in this area. A lot of really great data coming out. So we consider that this is in that strand of literature we have some contribution, right? And of course, in terms of the things that people have studied, of course there are lots of analytical models of sales, right? Which look at agency-based perspectives, right? The idea that you cannot observe people's efforts, you are going to infer their effort based on output, and how does that relate to how you reward them, how it relates to risk aversion, and so on and so forth. Very large literature in marketing, right? It's primarily being theoretical. And then there is this survey-based research, which is what we call observational research. Very exciting. Lots of developments in transactional cost and agency theory were studied through the lens of observational studies. And now I think we are talking about really doing more micro-level field experimentation. So Kishore et al. 2013 is a paper that I worked with a bunch of people, published in GMR, where we looked at an intervention where we actually switched a company's compensation from bonus, lump sum bonus, to a linear commission, and then we talked about what it did to the outcomes and so on and so forth. Mishra and Nair is a very nice study, published in QME, which talks about productivity and estimation of people's productivity parameters of the individual. And then, of course, lots of issues that people have studied, things like firm sizes, national culture effects, commission rates of multiple products, and so on and so forth. I won't go into lots of details, but just again to give you a motivation why sales compensation is important. If you look at the way the bonus commissions and so on and so forth are used in US markets, at least, there are very few selling contexts where pure salary is used as a incentive, right? Or less than 5%. Everything actually, most of the incentive plans or the compensation plans involve some sort of a incentive which is linked to the productivity, right? So these are bonus commissions and so on. So here is our big motivation for in terms of what we are going to do. Two things, right? Much of the literature talks about output-based incentives. We are going to talk today about input-based incentives, right? So there is very little, little we see in marketing which talks about looking at people's activities and rewarding them, right? So one of the things that people often talk about is that if you are going to reward people on activities, people can game the system, right? So output is an unbiased nature, right? So if somebody sells, reward them. Why look at how they are trying to sell and so on and so forth, right? And we make a statement that it actually is important to actually reward activity as well, right? And the second thing that we are going to look at is also the fact that much of the literature has looked at how to reward salespeople, and in that whole equation, people have typically ignored the sales managers, right? Who are the key drivers of managing the salespeople and how their incentives are aligned and so on and so forth. And we are going to actually have some discussion of that because in this data it allows us to do so.
Comparison between sales and activity, the assumption is there is no costs of observing the actions. Usually the assumption is the action is not observed, right? That's why the contract is designed on.
Correct. So the classic assumption, as you say, in the agency literature is that the effort cannot be observed. Okay, so effort cannot be observed, and which is very reasonable, right? So you have a salespeople person sitting in Patna, and you are sitting in Delhi. It's very difficult for you to go and monitor that person in terms of how much effort they're putting in. And so the whole premise is that you are going to use some other tools to make it actually in their own interest that they work hard, right? And that's the whole agency contract literature, right? Again, it is somewhat similar to that in the sense that we don't observe people's effort. What we observe are some proxies for efforts. Okay, so these activities, in some sense, are proxies of those effort variables, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. And that is somewhat new in that sense that we also is using that in the okay. And then we are going to talk about the supervisors, right? And so the point that we want to make here is that there is a lot of industry context where such input-based incentives are quite common. So one is, of course, you might be quite familiar with is the medical field, right? Medical representatives are a big place where a lot of people are employed, right? They carry their bags and go to doctor's office and go to stockists and so on and so forth. Poor guys have to wear a tie in the heat and so on and so forth, right? But what they do is they are rewarded for two things. They are rewarded for sales, and they are also often, not always, in many cases are also rewarded for what we call our call reports. That's what you're saying, right? This is like at the end of the day, I'm going to come and give a report to my branch manager or whoever, my supervisor. And the supervisor is actually going to look at that, make some verifications. They can do some random checks that you actually went to this doctor and so on and so forth. But these activity-based reports are very extensively generated in these kinds of contexts. Many times firms use these. Sometimes it's just a disciplining device. But what we're going to talk about it is that it actually can be explicitly incorporated in the incentive design that we do. Okay? And that actually has some benefits for us to think about how good these effectiveness of these incentive designs are. Okay? So the question is very simple. In this case, we're asking, do ABIs or activity-based incentives improve productivity? Right? Sometimes people make a statement, well, why would it not? Right? If you pay people more, they are more likely to work hard, right? And so on and so forth. There are two things I would respond to that, right? One is, these are activities, right? There's a huge chance that activities can be gained, right? And so if you tell people visit 20 doctors and I'm going to pay you, people would visit 20 doctors, right? They'll just knock the door and move around and then go back and do their quota, right? And that is unlikely to improve productivity, right? So the question is, why would we do that, right? The other thing is, even if, let's say, you are rewarding on an activity, and activity is supposed to lead to increase in the productivity, and that link is known to us, there still is a question in the sense that, is this improving the overall benefit for the organization? You might reward people for activity, and then you pay for the activity. In the net, does it actually work or not? Right? You don't know, because you are giving more money to people. That is reducing your overall profitability and so on and so forth, right? So it's in some sense an open question, right? And we're going to talk about it. The way we design the experiment actually takes care of many of these things. So the way we set it up is that we are going to try and make changes in such a way that overall incentive payout actually doesn't change. But at the same time, what we are going to do is that a fraction of that incentive goes to ABIs in addition to the output that is usually being given. And that actually allows us to think about what the effect of that thing is going to be.
Just a question. When you're talking about outputs, even in medical industries, what happens is that, say, for example, for the month of March, you completed your quota. Okay. And if you have some outstanding orders, in order to make the next month more profitable for you, you would transfer it outside. And in the case of an activity based, say for example, every day you need to meet certain number of doctors.
Right.
Then you will have quotas based on either daily or weekly or monthly ones.
Correct.
And therefore, there is also even a possibility that a similar kind of postponing may happen.
Correct. No, I totally agree. And in the lingo of sales literature or incentive design, we call it gaming, right? So the gaming could happen in two ways. One is, if you have already met your quota or something, then you have an incentive to what we call push out this to the next month, because there is no incentive for you to actually go beyond that, right? The other is what we call, when you are very close to quota and it seems that you can't meet it, there's an incentive for you to pull in, right? Just book the order and so on and so forth, so I can meet. So many of these concerns remain, and in our 2015 JMR paper we talked about many of these things. Here the focus is somewhat little different. We are not talking about those issues, but looking on aggregate overall effect of adding this piece of compensation, which is ABI, in addition to your output-based incentives. One thing I just want to clarify, that these concerns are somewhat mitigated in this case, because the scheme that they currently use for output based is not a lump sum bonus, but it is a linear commission scheme. Okay, so it's not in your interest to stop actually earning in that case. So I think somewhat this problem is
so the importance of the activity is paramount in this case, right? So it's like, so if I understood correctly, the JMR paper also is basically linear versus the bonus. So conclusion is basically bonuses are good when you want people to do a lot more activity, different kinds of activity.
Correct.
So that
so here I think it's less of that multitasking tension going on here. It is more of it's a territory sales. The output is less precise. So you are rewarding people for output, but you need another piece to reward individuals, and that's where activity-based incentives come. Yeah.
I think in your statement there was this aspect that output is very uncertain.
Right.
So if I have to look at the industry.
The output is not uncertain. The output linked to individual is uncertain. Correct.
Yes. So if I see at the industry level where so pharmaceutical sales, there might be some uncertainty with respect to the output getting converted, the activity converting to output. The firms are also risk averse. They are probably not able to screen out the good people from the bad people.
Okay.
So does this precisely map onto a setting where the firm is not as risk averse, but there's a very high uncertainty from the supply side, which is from the sales side. So as long as the uncertainty is a characteristic, we are talking in that context.
Right. So I must say that we can't speak to that, at least in this context, because we really don't have data in terms of the supply of the salespeople and how much the firm worries about it. But it's a good point. I really haven't thought about that. But that might also play into some of these design of these incentives that we really don't know, because we don't have questions.
I actually worked a lot with the senior supervisors of salespeople in pharma markets incidentally for a few companies. But nevertheless, you observe a lot of studies in behavioral economics that talk about satisficing behavior as against optimizing behavior.
Right.
So therefore, my sense of working with the salespeople would be that yes, you're rewarding me for an activity that I'm supposed to be doing, but yes, I'm targeting a salary of 45,000 or 50,000 a month. I'm going to get it based on what I've done already. Why should I even bother? In other words, there's a strong effect of feeling satisfied with what you got, where the incentives beyond a point actually stop working. Right. And the other concern would be sometimes the targets are so high, or targets are so or the incentive structure is set in such a way that a threshold
is very high.
There's absolutely no way on which I'm going to press myself if I know that I'm going to hit the next, if I'm not going to hit the next threshold. Maybe those are the two reasons too why activities will not be.
That's true. So I think when you're talking about income targeting, you probably have in mind those cab drivers.
Exactly.
Right?
No, but you see actually, if you talk to the sales guy, you see certain kind of same mentality that is coming through.
Right, okay. I have to make 50K.
Exactly. Right. I mean, I have certain targets in mind. I pay that. I'm good.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, and I really haven't thought about that angle to this study. One really sort of interesting research question there would be how these mental targets are formed, right?
That's a different question.
Yeah, it's a different question, but it's interesting. When you talked about, I think I'm already thinking maybe,
Could I add one more point? Sorry,
yeah,
not to distract too much, but I think where this is coming from. I have my classmates who are same qualified, equally qualified as me. We've done BSc together or a BA together.
Right.
They are making 20,000 by working in a call center.
Right.
I'm beating the hell out of them already by a margin if I'm making 40,000.
Right.
It doesn't matter. So this is what I gathered based on my informal interaction with the supervisor.
So there's some sort of an external reference.
Exactly. There is enough reference that one could establish, I think, if one were to form a hypothesis around it.
Very good. Yeah. Good. So let's move on. So I mean, when we think about the literature in this area, there's of course there is a literature in Salesforce that has talked about output based versus behavioral control, right? Output based, this is like jargon, but at the end of the day, looking at the sales and using this as an incentive tool, versus behavioral based, which is some sense trying to find out the proxies for the input. Okay, and there's again this bunch of papers which I looked at in the survey form. The output control, of course, commissions are the most common way of that. And then, of course, people have talked about the precision part, right? How good the actual output actually tracks your effort, right? That's the key question, right? And that precision actually is the reason why sometimes actually commissions are not used, because even though you can track sales, it's not clear that how good of that link is, right? So many times you will see what are called these flat wage contracts and so on and so forth, right? So of course the other measure is the behavioral control, which is the call report kind of a thing. And the problem, of course, there is the subjectivity and the bias and all these issues that creep in, right? So the point here we are making is we have a territory where it's not clear, how much each salesperson is contributing to the output. But at the same time, output is important and we need to reward people for output, right? So how do we do that if we can't link people to the individual level of output? So the way, at least this company that we work with approaches the problem is the following, which might, again lead to all sorts of issues. But here is how they do it, okay? If you have a territory, you have 5 salespeople and you sell 50 lakhs, what do? The simplest way to do that is you attribute 10 lakhs to each of these guys, right? Just divide it by 10. Everybody's attribution is x divided by n, right? Now in econ we know this would lead to what is called a free rider effect, right? The bigger the territory, the more severe would be the free rider effect, right? So our discussion was that using this as the sole measure, especially when the sales territories are bigger, more complex, is going to actually mismatch people's effort to the reward, right? So that's where the activity-based reporting come in. That here is an individual measure which is at the salesperson level, which has some proxy with the effort that they're putting in. Let's put that as a part of the equation. Okay, and let's see together what do they do in terms of the overall change in the output and so on and so forth. And that was sort of the where we were going with this. Okay. Again, of course, the principal agent theory we have talked a little bit about it. Is again the idea that principal cannot observe the agent, and then you have to do all these things to incentivize people to do it, right? And of course, the strength of incentive is inversely proportional to the precision, right? If I can very clearly observe, the link between the input, and I can observe the input, and input has a very good relation with output, then you just tell people do this, and you get the desired outcome. Of course, that's not what the real world has, right? So this other part of the thing is like this control loss literature. This is old JM style literature, which has talked a lot about the idea that when the vertical levels within organizations increase, it leads to difficulty in how you can control what is happening at the bottom level, right? People who are actually going to sell stuff. And there you have all sorts of interventions. One is you have more bureaucratic procedures and so on and so forth, right? And so in some sense, contribution of our study is that we are going to bring sort of these two strands of literature together through some sort of intervention. So here is, before I get into my empirical study, this very simple model that I have. It's actually so simple that we are probably going to just put it as an appendix or something. But the idea is very simple, and salesperson I's relationship to the effort is, if the effort, and then there is some random stochastic error, right? The random error could be, variety of reasons, right? But there is some, of course, it has some relationship to how much you are going to produce. But the problem is, of course, that you don't observe that. What you observe is this, which is an aggregated measure of what all these people are doing. So it becomes a difficult task for you to separate this out. And there is also now, when we talk about call reports, there is another measure, which is basically that this is the activity that we observe. Activity again has some relationship with the effort, and we have this additional measure.
Of course, you get the validity part into the ABI policy? Why is effort
So in this case, the relationship between the effort and the effort, this is sort of, an assumption that has been made a lot in the agency literature. So we have just followed the convention. Maybe, there is a non-linear sort of a relationship. But this is simply an illustration of the problem that we study.
I know certain companies in the pharma sector which look at this, the second year model, YI equals to EI plus C. So individual effort. So what happens is when you allocate stockists, retailers, doctors to individual reps,
Right.
then you know that for the supervisor, they know that that particular stockist has this much of inventory stock that goes out, and therefore how many times in a week you're visiting that particular stockist or that particular retailer, that particular doctor, in somehow measures both your effort and the output from that particular stockist or the retailer or from the doctor itself. Now, the aggregate that you're saying might come from a territory,
right,
but it also happens that you can measure the effort along with individual efforts along with the aggregated effort, because
Could be.
at a very disaggregated level you do allocate individual stockists and others. So you know how often have you traveled, have you met the stockist this many times or not, and whether there is an output.
I mean, there is some assignment and allocation of that kind happens, but at least my my conversations with at least this particular company is that even with doing all these things, there still are significant spillovers, and it's very difficult for them to determine how to attribute a particular, how to actually calculate an individual level's output. I mean, I see the variety of ways in which you could do that, but practically speaking, they had this issue. And, maybe it's less of an issue. Maybe a good study to think of also is that now there are lots of technological tools available which probably can track the inputs at much more precise level and what they could potentially do to some of these things that we talked about. I am talking about a period of 2009 to 12. So of course it's not too old of a data, but still maybe there have been significant advances in how these people are tracked and so on and so forth, which would have interesting implications on what we're doing. And so there's this call report, and then so of course one way to think about it is what do we do, right? We are basically trying to compare two schemes. So one is purely output based, and then other is there is something output based as well as there is a link to some input, right? And you can compare the two schemes. The optimization problem, these are very, very standard things, right? So this is only output is considered. What you're trying to do is you're not trying to come up with beta 0 and beta y, right, which you can't tailor at the individual level. And there is overall aggregate output, and you think about the IC and IR constraint, and this is a textbook case of how you solve this problem, right? And then of course, when both input and output are considered, the only thing is that you have a reward based on the aggregation, but also the individual signal, and then you have your standard IR and IC constraint, and you solve it again very textbook, right? It's like what you will be taught in information economics 101, right? But it at least gives us a framework to think about the problem, right? And so I think we do a little bit of analysis. The insights that come out of it could come out without a model as well, but it's probably nice to have something like this here. So when output is extremely precise measure of effort, then the ABIs are not very useful. So compare a territory with 1 person versus a territory with 11 persons, right? So the output is less precise measure of somebody's effort in that larger team. So we should see that ABIs are more valuable in one case versus other, right? And so on and so forth, right? So here is our context, right? So let's talk about data, right? This is what we are going to talk about. So the data comes from a large Indian pharma company. It has about 600. So this is not the entire company. This is one division of this company. So this division has about 600 salespeople, and it has about 305 territories. And there are lots of single. So there's like if you go to a small town, the territory is 1 person. But there are other instances where New Delhi might have actually 4 territories, and within those 5 territories there are multiple salespeople, right? So very, very different sort of thing, okay? The compensation is fixed plus group commission on sales and incentives on effort, right? So there are some, this is where we are coming up with a sort of a ABI kind of a scheme. And the measurement of effort is what we call these ABIs, which is the call reports. The call reports, we pull what these people are talking about in these call reports, and which basically is pharmacy visits and medical coverage ABIs. So they basically what they do is they take all these call reports and create a summary measure, which allows them to actually compare across the salespeople, and we use that as an input in the model. So here, yeah.
Explain what is group commission on sales. That part.
So you look at the total sales of the territory, and that territory actually has a beta. So you actually, everybody gets something out of that, right? So again, it's the same problem that they cannot actually link individual output, and so they use the group output. So that is a problem.
But that is, I think, very idiosyncratic to that.
Yeah, it could be, which is very good for us, right? That's it allows us to look at the effect, right? So here is what we did. So year 1, they were output-based commissions. Year 2, about 6 months, you suddenly introduce the manager and salespeople ABI incentives. So both managers and salespeople actually were judged on their call report activity, and everybody's actually incentive, proportion of incentive was actually linked to it. Okay? In the same year, about half a year in the middle of it, the incentives for salespeople were withdrawn. Only managers had the call report incentives or ABI incentives. In the year 2, 3, everybody's incentives, ABI incentives were taken off, and so year 3 and year 1 actually have the same similar incentives.
What managers and salespeople knew about this?
That's right. They knew, I mean. So it's very hard for me to figure out the spillover, but the way these incentives work, I didn't know much about this, but when I dug into it, it's like they have these circulars that go from the head office. So the circulars have a quote from Mahatma Gandhi: work hard and follow your path and so on and so forth. And then they will have a bunch of things how you will be rewarded. So my guess is the salespeople get how salespeople are rewarded. Similar circular goes to sales manager, where they have their incentive scheme lined up. I don't know how much of spillover there was. I can only conjecture, but I don't know if salespeople actually go and tell individual salespeople this is how I am rewarded. But it's also hard to see why this spillover would not happen.
So I mean, I could probably guess that the spillover would be huge because when I work for a pharma company and I've gone on a few sales rep beats, so that as they call it. The language that these people use and the bonding that the boss and the subordinate have are not exactly what you're calling as an office, white collar type of thing. Language will fairly embarrass a truck driver, common parlance, one would say.
I see.
And therefore, I would be very surprised if the manager and the salespeople don't know each other's salaries to the last paisa.
Correct. And so the question, which is a very good point, and the question.
But I don't see why it will affect your study.
In the sense that I could. Why would it affect my study? Because at least when I talk about the results, I don't see this concern for fairness anywhere figuring in my results. And I have to think through is that a significant force in what we're going to see that is the effect that we are seeing. So for example, one of the things that could potentially be asked is that let's say there is an effect that is a consequence of not having an incentive. And we might say that this is coming because of not having an incentive. Is it coming out of because you now have a spite against the manager who still has this and I don't? So I mean, it would be nice if you could somehow actually ease that we really don't. But that's a really good point.
If it's only if it's 305 territories, I'm assuming it's a large company, so it's got to be one of the 3 names. I think it's very clear.
Don't ask me.
I'm not going to embarrass you further on that. What I'm saying is that my only concern would be the shift you did in the year 2.
I see.
Year 2, you first half of the year, you have a salesperson as well as his boss are getting incentives. This is a common knowledge. So therefore, these two people will end up working extra hard as joint partners in crime, if you will. Now suddenly you're telling one person, you have tomorrow incentive nikal gaya, but the boss retains his incentive. So
and that too,
it becomes,
you retain it because it's going to depend on what you do.
Exactly. So in other words, you're creating a slave driver kind of a situation in every sense of the word. So therefore, whether that would lead to a collegial environment out there in the workplace or not. I mean, so that's my only concern. I'm not worried about the spillover effect.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, that's a very good point. Clearly, at least we should acknowledge what some of that might be.
And also, did you see within territories where there are multiple salespeople, the difference in the seniorities also are there between sales. Like all of them will probably not be in the same band, or some might be senior in some level, and therefore their incentives may be driven because the salaries also will be different up to even minor extent.
So good point. I mean, the data is very aggregated. So disaggregated. So we actually know everything about these people, what they do, how much they are making in terms of fixed salary, how much they are making in terms of incentives, and so on and so forth. So to answer your question clearly about one thing, let's say a territory has 4 salespeople, okay, and one makes $10,000 rupees, other makes 12, 14, 16. The incentives would not depend on what their current fixed salary levels are. If the incentive is 1 lakh, it would get divided equally among 4 people, which would be 25,000 for each of them. What does it do to their individual motivation for somebody who is at a higher level versus lower? That's an interesting question that we don't know.
Are you talking about ABI for salespeople and management? I can understand for the end salesperson, how many doctors they are visiting. What about managers? How many measuring for them?
Oh, good point. So managers ABI incentive is very interesting. It's not the sales manager obviously is not going around and actually making these calls, right? He's a manager, he's managing these people. It actually is a summary measure of what all these people are doing. So 5 people doing these activities, how good of these activity levels are going to actually result in how much the manager gets rewarded. So manager's job is that these activities are performed at whatever level it's sort of.
So manager's incentive ABI is basically sum total of ABI of all the salespeople.
Yeah, some total or some index that is created, which essentially is a summary measure of what salespeople are doing in terms of it. Yeah, that's true.
There are no sales manager specific measures in this.
No, there is no manager specific. So manager specific measure, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are ways in which they are rewarded in addition to what salespeople are doing. But at least in this case, we are not really focused on that. I mean, they're probably more like how you are promoted and so on and so forth. We really don't know much beyond these 3 years. So this is again our experimental design. 15 months of status quo. This is 16. Beginning of 16 month is intervention 1, which is dual level of ABI incentives. The 22nd month beginning is our second intervention, which is only 1 level of incentives, and next 3 is basically the status quo revival, right? And that's pretty standard, right? Of course, anybody who has taken any class in experimental methodology knows that this has problems, right? This is not a perfect design, right? What is one of the problem here? There is no control group here, right? So this is is simply a time series of observations for these people, right? So that clearly is a problem here, right? And we try and sort of address this in multiple ways. We try to, because the long time series actually also sometimes allows you to control for some of the time effects and trends and so on and so forth. But I mean that's a big part of how this paper would get revised, because the reviewers came with a hammer, which is that where is the control group, right? Where is the secular trend, right? And so that's the and actually we will be able to address those issues because the company was kind enough to to give us the data from another territory which did not have any of these interventions, and they just use those as facts, proxies for coming over.
Could I ask you what the therapeutic area was that you're looking at? Because one would be able to guess if there are any other governmental policy related. For example, if it's cardiovascular, 2013 is where DPCO hit them, where a bulk of drugs have actually come under regulation. So if, let's say, your study is going to be on cardiovascular or on diabetics, then I would assume that increase in sales would be simply because the price was supposed to be reduced.
Lots of things, right?
Yeah. So
that clearly is your concern. What you're saying is exactly what is the concern in any experimental methodology, right? Which is that how do you know these changes are not as a consequence of other things that are
3 years is a long
very long
time in pharma, especially in the time period that
correct. And that is why I think we are sort of in a good shape, because we now have access to a control group, which essentially allows us to look for, and control group territory, and again I really can't tell you when the therapeutic category, but it operates in very similar business. So even though it's a different division, the business is actually similar to what we are doing. So that allows us to at least.
So here is my slightly other concern. Sorry, relating on this point. It's not just the same therapeutic area that is going to go through the experiment.
Right.
Given the tight-knit group that this is, you're likely to have other therapeutic areas below, in the sense that managers talk, sales reps talk, and yes, a cardiovascular sales rep is telling his nephrology friend, hey listen, I'm getting this incentive, what are you getting? And therefore the nephrology, which might be your control group, in some sense gets a little corrupted. So that's my slight concern with the control group that you're mentioning actually.
Correct. No, that's a valid point, and I think all we can do here is, some sense, use that control group to sort of, statistically try and tighten how this control group is working. So I think we have these new methodologies like what are the so-called synthetic control methods and so on and so forth. I think we are using some of that to at least alleviate some of these.
And also new product launches will have a very big impact on your experimental design. Because incentives generally for new products are structured in a different way than for existing products. And 3 years or 4 years is a long, I'm guessing.
No. So I think those concerns are a little bit, because we have the dummies for those things as well, and so we actually have a long list of covariates that we are going to put in the model, which at least take care of some of these issues, if not 100%. And again, I think people here have a lot of knowledge about how the pharma selling works, so I don't have to really talk about what salesperson does here. They go to doctors, they go to stockists, and so on and so forth. And then there are these activity signals are what we call the call reports, and the sales signals are very easy, and they know how sales are.
I don't know call reports, it's just like W is 0, 1, when you the call yes or no?
No. So call report is, it's a summary of things like at the end of the day, who you visited, and how many people you visited, you go to stockists. So it's not 0-1 that you made a call or not. Yes, a call is 0-1, but somebody measure is a continuous day.
So is there a duration specific descriptive, how much time you spend with the stockist or with the
No, so it's less of that. You don't really have that fine-grained measures, but you essentially have who you visited and what percent of area you covered.
So I don't know if this is a contextual issue, but the doctors and the sales representatives tied to a particular pharmacy store. So you're saying though that happens, but still eventually is divided.
The doctors are tied to, you're saying pharmacy?
Yeah.
No, but you can take doctor's prescription to other pharmacies.
That happens.
Yeah,
so that first part is still not some, gives you some kind of means to say that, if there's a doctor, at least in India most of the time that happens, that there's a doctor and there's just a pharmacy next door.
Right.
So a good part of sales you can easily attribute to, at least the behavior, typically, and often, because there are multiple brands, often you have a problem that if you take that prescription to another part of the city, then the store may not be keeping those brands. You know, and that happens actually. We have seen practically that, you know, like paracetamol, there are 10 brands.
Right.
Now, typically consumers are not aware that, you know, you can have paracetamol of any of these 10 brands.
Right.
So that particular brand would be available in a pharmacy store which is just next door.
Right.
Because there is some kind of
yeah, that's correct. I mean, that's there, but there is also the opposite thing also happens, right? Sometimes the doctor writes a particular brand, and the pharmacy actually can switch the brand. I mean, I have seen that also going on, right? That, you know, hey, it says, you know, there is a generic version available, that's all. Right? So I think there is some
that happens, but generally it's more, you know, when that brand is not available. I don't know.
No, sometimes they actively just substitute. I mean, I've seen that as well.
That's a common practice.
Yeah. So I don't know if it actually has a huge effect on what we are doing, but something to think about. I really haven't thought about that.
No, I mean, I think Anand's point is right in the sense that the signal that a medical rep is generating in terms of the effort that he's putting in, and that translating into output may not be as uncorrelated as it would be in a US or a European context, as it would be in the Indian context. In other words, the correlation between effort and output can be tracked because a doctor is typically assigned to only one sales rep of a particular therapeutic area. Therefore, multiple people would not be visiting the doctor. So therefore, if you were to measure that sales coming out of the pharmacy next door, you wouldn't even need an activity base. You could actually establish an effort-based incentive structure is probably how I understand Anand's question to be. But nevertheless, it may not have that much of an impact on the experimental design you have in mind.
No, but it's a
I can tell you that I visited a doctor recently, and the chemist pharmacy store next door actually told us that the prescription generated, sales generated, a part of that is shared with the doctor. So it's a linkage that, it's actually he told us that he's given us, because many doctors nowadays they have their own pharmacy store, not of, in Ahmedabad.
I'm telling you, I paid. I paid. So, because doctor generated prescriptions for our team, so therefore I paid. So therefore, you don't even need to believe pharmacists, you can believe the one who paid as well.
Who's paid? The salespeople paid.
Yeah, the salespeople have paid the doctors.
That is known, but the sales shared by the store, because we know that doctors are right there. That's a difference. But then this was new to me that the store is saving earning.
That happens too. That happens too. Lots of it's a complicated market. So anyway, so let's look at some of the descriptives of the data. Like so, here is all these territories, right? So you can see there are lots of territories with one person, right? So all these blues are one. Then there are like the second most common number is 2s, and then you have this, the 7 and so on and so forth. But I think no territory is more than 9 salespeople. But again, I think we have quite a bit of variation here, which allows us to think about what does the territory size does to the effectiveness of these schemes, right? So here is very eyeballing the data. So what we have here is distribution of sales across different interventions. So intervention 1, remember, is when you have both the salespeople and the supervisor getting the incentives. Intervention 2 is only the supervisor, and then you have your baseline where it's only output, right? I think it's very hard to sometimes read these kernel-based graphs, but it seems everybody puts these on in the paper. But one thing I think to look for is that if you think of this as the baseline, what we are seeing is at least the mass is shifting on the right-hand side in the interventions, which is at least giving some indicator that something is going on, right? That actually sales might actually be affected by the intervention. Similarly, if you look at just the activity reports per se and how good these activity reports are, again there is a small shift that we see, but of course we need to take into account many other things that might be going on, and that's why we probably need a small model, or at least in a regression in some controls, right? So here is our first sort of a small empirical regression. Here is what we are we are looking at the effect of the activity incentives on the activities themselves, which again is sort of no-brainer, right? If you are rewarding people on activities, the activity score should go up. And again, that's what we should see. But I think more important from the managerial perspective is this question that in which case actually the effect on activity is more, whether when both the parties are paid or whether it's just one party that is getting paid. And if you look at the results, and the second is of course we are then looking at these interventions on the outcome in terms of the sales, right? So this is the activity score effect. And here is a sort of a surprise that we got, right? Now remember, these activity scores come at two levels, right? So one is individual salespeople activity scorecards that we are getting, and then they are translated into a territory level activity score through which actually the manager would get rewarded, right? So there are two levels of these things are coming. So if you look at the salesperson level, what is interesting is that the effect actually is somewhat little bit increases when it's only the managers who are paid the activity based incentives compared to the case where actually both of them are being paid by the activity. In this case is salesperson level activity score.
Okay.
Right, so the call report leads to a score in which everybody is getting. So what we are seeing is actually the effect is actually sort of more effective when it's only the salespeople who are getting rewarded on the activities, and which speaks to this control theory that we have been talking about, that really the locus of these incentives probably should be the supervisor, who actually are the ones who judge these activities, scorecards and so on and so forth. Of course, there is some worry here is also probably that, maybe because they are the keepers of these activity reports and so on and so forth, are they, in some sense gaming the system and actually getting to better scores.
So the score is compensatory in nature, in a sense that different activities come together to come up with a number, or is it like some activities are way higher as compared to other activities? Because
no, so it's a somewhat of a complicated formula. So it talks about the chemist coverage, and there are minimum levels sitting there. There are doctor visits, there are some minimum. So they together get aggregated into a numerical score that comes out. But it's not just a linear measure of how many visits you are making. Yeah.
When you're saying territory level, how many levels of hierarchies are different from the bottommost guy, namely the medical guy?
What's that, sorry?
So you have what you call as an area sales manager, then you have a zonal sales manager, then you have a state sales manager.
Right. So
what's the manager?
Here it's simply the frontline manager.
So that means L+1 of
Yeah. So that's all. I mean, you're right. I mean, there is actually an extensive hierarchy there, but we really we're not going, because the incentives at least in this experiment are already designed at that level. So that was sort of a surprise for us. And then if you look at the sales effect, somewhat similar effects are seen. Less so. I mean, the thing is, when you are paying both of them for the activity versus only one, there is a little bit of dampening, but not really big in terms of the score. If you look at if you try and actually interact it with the number of salespeople, actually the main effect goes insignificant. And really what is going on is that, it really is, the precision is what matters. So really the effect is only in the multi-person territories. The effect is not actually happening at single person or maybe 2% territories. So bigger territories where the signal and the effectiveness of signal is actually much more prominent. And that's what is reflected in the intervention, the interaction with the So again, it's an academic paper, right? So there are like 7 or 8, robustness checks that we have to do that, to illustrate that this effect is robust. So we do bunch of things like, are these effects heterogeneous across different types of salespeople? What should be the unit of analysis and so on and so forth? Because the activity is measured at individual level, the sales are at the territorial level, what does it do to, and so we do a bunch of things. I think we did a fairly good job, like talking about, is it a consequence of attrition, right? Because in pharma, a lot of people are changing jobs and so on and so forth. Again, we have to show that this is not actually coming off something that might have gone up during that particular period, and we see what we see. But again, I think coming back, one of the biggest sort of like a question that stayed for a long time with the reviewers and the people we have presented to is again the absence of the control. Right? That the idea that it's a nice story, it sort of fits, what the theory might say, but we have a hard time with it because there is no control. It's just a time series theory, right? And so fortunately, we are carrying out the analysis that.
I was wondering why lack of control group is a problem here, because we have a difference estimate that you've actually gotten.
Right.
Why should control group is your status quo?
Yeah, that's what No. It's a good point. The control group is status quo, but the control group is situated in a different time period, right? So is there a time effect which is...
But if you're doing if you're doing time-specific fixed effects, which you are in your regression, and your second status quo cannot be the control group because they have already been exposed to a certain
Right.
So therefore,
we did believe in the story and what we see, but sometimes you have to do more.
You just told you to do this, so
you can actually have an overtime.
doing analysis again.
Yeah, we got two data because we need a territory where there was no such intervention happening. And so the answer is that you are seeing all these changes. Are these changes because of intervention or something else that is happening in the environment? So you find the data which actually did not implement this.
So you are doing that analysis now?
Yes, we are right now doing. I don't have the results, but I think my initial cut of the data seems quite promising. So hopefully that should. So that's where we are at. I mean, sort of, its average productivity went up by about 8%. Remember, we did overall increase the compensation.
So is this ABI means at a manager level or at a manager and sales together? Can you say?
Yeah, so it's about 8%, irrespective whether you go to both of them or just one. So that there is not a big difference when you actually cut it down. And that was a sort of a surprising finding for us. So the lesson, of course, here is that maybe you don't have to give it at both levels. But again, the idea is what does it do to spike and all these other factors.
Yeah, so
but strictly in terms of
same then probably giving it to both will be creating more collegiality or I don't know.
No, but then you have to pay more, right? So
it can be divided, whatever the incentive is same.
You are right, but so we don't know, right? Again, we have to think through it because if you redistribute it in some sense, you are actually bringing down the incentive for the manager. So I don't know if that actually is going to have an effect and so on. But the big, I think, theoretical insight here is that the focus should be the managers because they can actually get.
But why that is? What is the logic or rationale that focus should be on? For ABI, focus should be on managers, not on the sales.
Because giving that incentive to salespeople, in addition to the managers, didn't actually result in any extra benefit in terms of outcome. And so, if you are actually, you can get the same bang for your buck by actually implementing at one level, you don't really have to.
So
that's the sort of.
A theoretical justification here, according to me, would be that the manager is getting greater incentive than sales force. He would be doing a better deployment of resources in terms of the best people going to the most vulnerable doctors, quote unquote.
Correct. And that's what we can judge.
That's probably the allocation itself.
Right.
So maybe this is a cool thing to study if the company allows you to give the data, which is if the allocation of territories to the sales people reps has changed between your intervention 1 and intervention 2.
So yeah, I need to look at that. I mean, if we have that movement of that, would be a very nice story to do.
Because if that is the case, then I think you can even get away from your control group problems.
Right.
That you actually would face in this case, no?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So this is because anyway managers are not directly linked to they are not the one who are generating sales. The sales
they are not generating sales. They are also not generating activity. So it is, they have to make sure that people do these activities and so on and so forth. Correct. So the true generator of output, if we have to say that, are the field workers, are the salespeople. Correct.
So then can we still call them activity-based incentives? Because the manager is not doing the activity.
No, they are activity-based incentives because the call reports are being generated for salespeople and those activity numbers are being used to reward. Right? So in that sense, you can still probably call them.
So these activities are monitored by them, supervised by them, but they are not their activities, as you said. They are still the activities of.
They are still the activities of the salespeople. Correct. So in that sense, it is activity-based incentive because the activities, they still are the summary measures of salespeople's activities that are getting into the creation of these matrices.
Could I? Theoretically, that again comes back to the fact that it's an output of the manager that we are looking at, which is the activity of the salespeople.
No, but it's not the output in the sales. You're not talking about the sales output, right? You're talking about the activity output. I don't know. I don't know how you think about it, but it's an activity output which is an input, right? So it's strange, right? It's an input that is, then gets translated into an activity output.
One of the things that works in pharma is when the higher up visits the doctor, it converts much more into sale than when a med rep visits the doctor. Right. Now with between intervention 1 and intervention 2, with the number of visits the manager has made to the doctor has increased, let's say,
I see.
Then you would actually see the fact that the sales have increased.
Right.
But it seems that the sales have not changed by much. But the
much.
mechanism of action here could be that the area sales manager now is making more visits to the doctor than he was doing 6 months ago, which is leading to converting greater amount of prescriptions for the company.
Could be, but I don't think in the data they have the manager.
No, it won't be.
Yeah, because these are not like used to generate activities, right? So, but that's an interesting thing. I don't know. We want to go to
all data would have a doctor ID on it.
Right.
You could match and see every sales rep going to the same doctor 6 months later, or if the allocation has changed.
Right.
That could actually get rid of your control group problems.
Yeah, but I think we have convinced ourselves that we need a control group, and so we'll see how that goes. Yeah. I think that's all I have, but we can probably take our discussion offline if you have further questions or comments. But it's very very valuable comments. At least some of the things I really did not think about, which came up in the discussion. So I really appreciate that. Hopefully, you should be able to see the paper in print in some time next year or something. And that's the hope for every researcher, right? Thank you very much.